This is a TalkStation original podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Paper Boys podcast. I'm JJ Smith.
And I'm Zach Nally.
Joined today in studio by Mr. Frank Tursi. Frank, thanks for being with us.
I'd love to be here. Thank you for having me.
Frank is known around these parts as the founding editor of Coastal Review. He was also a newspaper reporter for 30 years. We're partial to them around here. And
sorry about that, Frank. No, I'm just kidding. Tough career.
Also on the town board of Swansboro.
For 8 years, yeah.
He name it, he's done it. But we're talking to him today because he's a book author. He's written 4, and the 4th one is the one that we're interested in. It's about, as our boss just mentioned a minute ago, the America's pastime, the national pastime, the game of baseball. And Frank, tell us, how does one come to write about baseball in North Carolina?
Well, I mean, among the many things I've done in life, the one thing I've probably done the longest is being a baseball fan. And I played it through high school and college, and have been a fan my entire life. And I grew up in New York City in the 50s and 60s. The Dodgers left town in 1947, took the Giants with them. So the Yankees were the only team in town when I was growing up. And my father, who was a rabid Brooklyn Dodger fan, and I'm wearing a Brooklyn Dodger hat, a very ratty Brooklyn Dodger hat in his honor.
Seen a few summers.
It's seen a few summers. He used to say, and I think half jokingly really, that his greatest disappointment in life was that his only son grew up to be a damn Yankee fan. But he would take me when I was young. He would take me to Yankee Stadium, and and I can remember. And I must have been 6 or 7, when you first form memories of holding his hand in old Yankee Stadium, going up those cavernous innards, and they didn't have steps or escalators or elevator ramps to move herds of people, clutching his hand going up the dark, and I could hear the public address announcer, what was his name? He was a Yankee legend. Going through the lineups for the day. Batting third, number 7, Mickey Mantle. I'm wearing his jersey. Mickey Mantle was my idol. And then coming out in the mezzanine into the daylight, and there it was, this green field, freshly mowed, the stark white lines, the foul lines, the smell of hot dogs and popcorn and freshly mowed grass, and hearing the pop of gloves. And, I had watched it on black and white television, and it wasn't color. I mean, I was sold.
Enough to make you religious, right?
I was sold. I was sold. And so baseball has been, a constant in my life, more so really than journalism or any of the other things I've done. So when COVID hit, and I've spent most of my career as a journalist in North Carolina. I know this state. I've written a lot about its history, its science, its geology, its geography. So North Carolina is the state I know, though I grew up in Brooklyn, but I like to say I was born in Brooklyn, tempered in North Carolina.
That's right.
But I went to high school in Asheville. So
Which
high
school?
Asheville Catholic, which is now closed. So I went to high school in Asheville, spent most of my professional career in North Carolina. So I know the state. And in my reporting, I'd bump into people. Enos Slaughter in the Hall of Fame from just north of the Triangle, Roxborough. And Enos, unfortunately, Enos played for the St. Louis Cardinals. He was an outfielder when Jackie Robinson broke in 47. And, the stories are now, it's well known that Robinson wasn't well received throughout most of the league. And there were stories that came out of St. Louis about the Cardinals were going to boycott the game when the Dodgers came to town, and that Enos was the ringleader of that. And wasn't true. The story, which appeared in the New York Herald Tribune, was years later debunked. And Enos spent his life trying to prove he wasn't a racist. And it certainly kept him out of the Hall of Fame for 20 years.
Wow.
No doubt about it. But during Hall of Fame election time, Enos would make pilgrimages to sports departments throughout the state to plead his case.
Oh, wow.
And it was really sad. I found that to be, a really sad spectacle. But I later found out that it was really an injustice that was done
Certainly.
to Enos.
Yeah.
But in my reporting, Buck Leonard, I met Buck Leonard in later in his life, and I did a story on Catfish Hunter, Jim Hunter, when Catfish was elected into the Hall of Fame. So I bumped into these people.
Yeah.
And being a baseball fan, said, geez, I'd like to know more about him. So the pandemic hit. We were isolated and
Had some
stuck
time
in
on
our
your
house.
hands.
Had some time on our hands, and what I would do is, the internet's an amazing thing. It truly is. It really is. There's a lot of stupid stuff, and you can get in trouble and all that. But as a research tool, it has been. I sat in my home in Swansboro.
Sure.
And researched 501 players. That's a number of natives who made it to the major leagues, and that's what the book's about. It's about no minor leaguers, but just North Carolina, and to be in North, you had to be born here. Now you could have been born here, the next day you moved someplace else.
Sure.
But according to the
That's
book,
the-
you're a North Carolinian.
Right.
You're an official North Carolinian. So if you were born here and made it to the major leagues, you're in the book, and there's 501 of them. And it's truly amazing what ancestry and now I pay for these services, but for $200 a year at Ancestry, I can plug in anyone's name, a date of birth, a place of birth, or where the person spent a sizable amount of time.
Yeah.
And within however long it takes for all this to work, within seconds on my screen pops up defense record, your discharge, military records, birth records, death certificate.
Wow.
It's amazing. It really is amazing. And then also, I've scanned or read I don't know how many thousands of sports pages.
I was going to ask because the digital newspaper. I'm trying to think of the website.
No, there's two.
Okay.
And the one, both are very good.
Yeah, it's great to go back and you can read just about anything you're looking
I
for.
could put, as a writer, I was able to put flesh on the bones. Most of these people are dead, and they played in the mid-20th century and earlier.
Sure.
So all I had to go on was the written records of sports writers,
Yeah.
and I used to be one. And so, I read game accounts and post-game interviews and great writers, the great sports writers. I read Red Smith and Shirley Povich and the people who made sports writing. And so I'd often get waylaid because I'd be reading a story about whatever player I was researching, and there next to it is a story by about a Jack Dempsey fight. So
That's going back there.
I would go down a rabbit. Oh yeah.
You can't help it.
I go down these rabbit holes, and
That's the best part.
Yeah, it was the best part, and so from that, the book was born, and it mostly the heart of the book are 38 profiles of players, and as I said, there are 501. There's no publisher in the world who would commit to what would likely be a multi-volume series of books about North Carolina baseball players.
Right.
There's not a great big market for that.
Very niche.
Yeah, there's a niche, and so no publisher would agree to that. So I had to fashion something that was sellable. So I said, well, let's go with profiling the best, and we have 7 Hall of Famers. So all 7 are profiled in the book.
And the other, 31 is that?
They're
Just exceptional cases of where
exceptional
something
cases.
specific that's
For
incredible.
Negro Leagues. I include the Negro Leagues in
Sure.
the book, and it's very little known, because they
Imagine.
played in the shadows.
Yeah.
They played in the shadow. They played a level of baseball that was pretty close to the major leagues. I don't think it was of the same caliber, but it was pretty close. And it was the best that they could play. I mean, they weren't allowed to play anywhere else.
Right.
But they were ignored by the white press, and so there's a chapter devoted to several Negro League players, Buck Leonard being the primary one. And then
How about reporters? Did you end up finding specific reporters that reported on that league?
Yes, in fact, yes, but unfortunately, they work for black newspapers.
Sure,
and they didn't get digitized.
No, what a shame.
Yeah. You know, it's amazing how many papers have been digitized, but very few black. Because they just.
No, I get it. Even going back you try to read about a Queen Street school in Beaufort,
right? That's right,
and what they did in football, and there's very little compared to. The other schools.
Now you compound that over decades.
I imagine,
and so there's a big hole.
Yeah.
The black players were the hardest to research because there's just not a lot there. And to give you an idea, David Barnhill, is a very good Negro Leagues player from Greenville. No one heard of him. I went to the Greenville Library. Because it was close, So one afternoon, I went to the Greenville Library.
Wow.
No one heard of him.
Not even there.
No, and I mean, he's buried in. He played in New York. He's buried in Greenville. No one knows where his grave is.
Wow.
And I spent couple hours one afternoon walking around the graveyard, and some guy pulls up in a pickup truck. Turns out he was Greenville's graveyard superintendent, and it was an old black cemetery that 20, 30 years ago had been given to the city.
Gotcha.
No one's ever done a survey of tombstones or who's there. You got an archaeology department 2 blocks away.
No doubt.
Collegiate. Sure.
Yeah.
You have ECU just down the street.
Sure.
And I suggested to ECU that maybe they send a couple of grad students, and so he got out his maps. I told him what I was doing. He got out his maps, and we could not.
Wow.
We were looking for even a Barnhill name.
Just a name.
Sure.
Yeah, so maybe he was
there and go.
Yes,
sure, some kind of lead.
We could find no evidence that there's a picture of the tombstone.
No kidding. Yeah, it's out there.
Yeah, it's out there. Yeah, there was a website
It's not the
for that.
location.
There's a website.
Wow.
Find the tombstone or find the grave site, and you type in someone's name, and it'll tell you where they're buried.
Wow.
So there's a picture of it, but we can never find it. So so it was COVID that gave me the time to do this, and it took a couple of years, 3 years. And finally, McFarland, who is an academic publisher, they're in Ashe County in the western part of the state. But for some reason, and I don't know the reason, they publish a lot of baseball books. So I bounced it off of them, and they said, "Yeah, we'll do it." And so,
wow, great!
It's supposed to come out here in the next few months. So,
oh wow!
Yeah.
And I don't even think I've mentioned the title yet. It's Tar Heel Boys of Summer, North Carolina's major league ball players. And Frank, you mentioned about the profiles you have. You have every mention of anybody that's ever been. And the third part of it, you said stats. Because if you want to write a baseball book.
Yeah, you got to have stats.
Yeah.
And that's the backbone of baseball. It's one of the beauties of baseball.
Right.
No doubt.
So, yeah, there's the back section. The middle section, the reason why the bulk of the book is there are 501 summaries of every player. Wow. And that lists the things you would normally see: weight, height, bats left-handed, right-handed, positions played, teams played for, and also some short biographical bullets. So you get some idea of who these people were.
Yeah.
And that makes up the bulk of the book, and then the back section is are stats. Okay. And so if you want to know who, the number one home run hitter in North Carolina is, it's there. Who stole the most bases? It's there. And I've ranked, because again, it's baseball. We like to do that.
What's the point if you're not going
we like to do that. So using this advanced statistic called wins above replacement WAR. It gives you, and I explain in the book, we can't go too far with this stuff.
Sure.
Let's not go crazy.
It's a fairly new stat applied to a time when it wasn't. Right.
And it does allow you to make some rough sort of estimates or calculations or comparisons between players of different eras.
This is basically a value the player brings to...
And essentially it's the player's value above the average replacement.
Right.
Okay, now, a lot of things wrong with that. One being old-time players tend to get higher values because blacks, Hispanics were not allowed in the major leagues.
Sure.
So their replacement would have been of a lower quality than what is now.
That's a good point.
So they get a little bump because of that. So there are things like that you got to understand before you start throwing this around. But it does allow you to
codify the whole thing.
Yes. And Buck Leonard, who is by far, he's from Rocky Mount. Buck was by far the best defensive player North Carolina has ever produced, hands down. No argument. But he only ranks 20th in WAR. Why? Because the Negro Leagues only played 50, 60-game seasons.
Oh, wow.
So if you've got a lifetime cumulative stat, if you're only playing, they would play over 150, maybe 200 games a year, but the actual seasons among competition of their grade among their leagues was only only 50 or 60, and then they fill up the schedule with whoever would play them.
Right.
So those stats, I think correctly, are not counted because.
But that's the best approach you can take in that kind of situation.
That's right. But because Leonard only played 60 games a season, as opposed at the time 154, his cumulative total, lifetime total, is lower. So he only ranks 20th.
Now, are all of these guys from a particular 30, 40-year era, or is this stretch over?
Oh, it included our current players.
So what's the oldest player in the book? The earliest?
Oh, well, the first player.
I'm putting you on the spot here, and I apologize.
Yeah, because
I'm just curious if we're looking like a 100-year window, or are we looking at
18. The first player played in the first professional league.
So we're looking at like 150,
1870s.
I got you.
Oh, wow.
1870s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So we've had them from the 1870s to current.
That's a big window.
And it's a big window. And
the winter took you a couple years to do it.
Yeah, it took several. Even if I didn't have to leave home. Without without the internet, I'd be traveling to. You couldn't do this.
No, for sure.
Because the reward isn't. This is not a book that's going to make me a lot of money.
Right.
And so the travel, doing it just wouldn't be worth it.
Yeah.
And so, but because I was able to sit at the house in Swansboro, I was able to do this. But it did take several years.
Like even the codifying process, I wonder. I mean, that sounds like it would take you months to. I mean, obviously, you can, but I mean, just to find the stats for each of these guys to calculate that.
Yeah, it's really. I'd like to say, I really,
it's all there.
No, it's all there. Yeah. Baseball Reference is my primary.
Oh, good.
Is my primary.
That's an amazing encyclopedia.
NFL Reference, NBA.
I subscribe.
Sure.
Because I only thought that was fair.
And I love that site because it's not gussied up. It's very plain.
That is exactly right.
Very much 2005 level of.
It is not gussied up. That's right.
Yeah.
But if there's a stat on baseball you can't find on that site, they don't keep it.
Someone's done it.
They don't keep it. So they're my prime, and they have wars. If you went on the site and put wars North Carolina, a list will pop up. Now the problem with that also is it changes. So even a player who may have not played for 50 years, his WAR might change depending on how it's calculated, and there are 2 or 3 different ways that they calculate WAR. I use Baseball References, but even they're tinkering with the formula. So they change the formula, and now a guy who was rated, had a WAR of 13.2. now maybe 14.6. So,
Okay.
So in the book it says, look, this is until
It's
20.
a little, yeah, if you look this up and find that my 13th
20
ranked guy is now 11th ranked, that's why.
This is good 2024.
Sure.
Anything beyond that,
There you go.
I'm not responsible
As of
for.
this date.
Right.
Well, that's a journalist in you right there. As of this report, you know.
Yeah, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Gaylord Perry is the number one pitcher. But again, Gaylord, he was worth a lot more to his team than, say, Catfish Hunter was, Jim Hunter was. If Jim Hunter had gone down in 1978, 1976, there would have been Blue Moon Odom or another very accomplished pitcher to take his place. Hunter was by far the best pitcher on whatever teams he played on. So if he goes down, now you're going to replace him with someone who may have won 3 or 4 games.
Sure.
So his value to the team is much higher. So he ran, and because he played over 20 years. But I don't consider him to be the best pitcher. The WAR would say he is. Jim Hunter is the best pitcher.
Right. Well, and there's, even in sports, right? I mean, stats don't tell the whole.
No, that's
tale.
right. Yeah, that's right.
There's still the eye test to some degree, and
I'm also rankled, and I should get over it, I guess. That Perry cheated his way into the Hall of Fame.
Oh, okay, well,
he did.
Sure.
He did. He mastered one pitch. Yes, he mastered it.
A well lubricated pitch.
A well lubricated pitch that had been illegal for 50 years when he started throwing it. It was well known. Yeah, he wasn't fooling anybody. He went through this. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember it. He went through this elaborate routine when he was delivering, touching his belt, his back. All was all part of the diversion and the sleight of hand that he was going through. And he got into batters' heads. I mean, Reggie Jackson once, he struck out Reggie Jackson on 3 incredible spitballs. And Jackson went into the dugout and threw a bucket of water out onto the field. Well, Jackson gets ejected.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they ejected Jackson, but
point was made.
Perry kept on pitching, kept on lubing up the ball and pitching. So, the Hall of Fame is full of cheaters, and they stole signs, and Rogers Hornsby once said, if you're not cheating, we're all cheating.
There's a lot of success out there that's been
fueled
by that. Yeah.
So not to take this Pollyannish view of it, but no one did it as
his whole career
strategically as Gaylord Perry, and it still somewhat irks me, but it is what it is, he ranks by WAR. He ranks as the top pitcher, but I think Jim Perry. I think if you were a manager and there was a game you had to win, and your choices were Jim Hunter or Gaylord Perry, you're going to choose Jim Hunter.
Yeah.
So, Hunter was by far the best.
Okay.
And he, again, I don't know how old you guys are to remember this. He was baseball's first true free agent. He was the guy who showed players what they could be worth if they had any real say in the matter.
Well, we're kind of going through something similar right now, aren't we? With some of that,
At the time, players, you signed a contract, you were bound to that team for your career. You had no say in if you were traded, if you were let go.
No, it's a lot like acting back in the 40s, 50s. You signed long-term contracts with these studios.
That's
Mickey,
right. It was called, and it was the players. It was a clause in a contract. Hunter, it was 1976, 77, 76. They just won with the A's. Had just won their 3rd consecutive World Series. Hunter had an agreement with Finley, the owner of the A's, that and he was making $100,000. Now he was one of the highest paid players in baseball, but he was making $100,000. The deal with Finley, with the owner, was that Finley would put half of it in an annuity But that meant that he would have to pay the taxes on $50,000.
Oh, wow.
So Finley, being a cheapskate, didn't do it. And I think Hunter knew when they signed the contract that he wouldn't do it. So at the end of the season, the players' union had just been in place. They had just formed in 2 or 3 years. They were not the power that they became, but they were beginning to flex their muscle, and Hunter was the first case. And so Hunter filed a grievance, and the contract that the owners had signed with the players' union stipulated that any kind of these kinds of disagreements would be an independent arbiter would determine the outcome. So they both agreed on an arbiter, and the arbiter ruled in favor of Hunter. It was clear the money wasn't in. The money wasn't in an annuity, so it was clear. Declared him a free agent. He lived in Hertford, in Hertford, and his lawyer's office was.
And nobody knows him by Catfish there, right?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
That's a national nickname, right?
That was that Finley gave him. A boy from the South would like to hunt and fish. We'll call him Catfish. But no one in Hertford County knows him. Perquimans County knows him by Catfish. He's Jim. He's Jimmy.
Sure.
And I spoke to, when he was elected into the Hall of Fame, I spent a couple of days in Hertford and spoke to his old catcher and his old man. And Jimmy is the nicest farm boy to ever pitch a perfect game. And he was that kind of guy. Make sure the old folks in town had enough wood in for the winter. And but
this free agency thing made him like the most famous baseball player in the world.
In the world. And so now, the next day, the Cleveland Indians offer him a contract that was double what he was, $200,000. And it went up $100,000 a day. Finally, it's gone for a couple of weeks. Jim said he didn't do any deer hunting, and he finally told his wife Helen on New Year's Eve that this was it. He was signing with somebody. So he was driving to Hosky to his lawyer's office. He turns into the Thunderbird Hotel to have a talk with his old friend. Anyway, he was a player. He was a scout. He was a New York Yankee scout who was a North Carolinian from Lenore, and had signed Jim Hunter at a high school. So he said, Jimmy, what is it going to take to make you a Yankee? Now, the Yankees had made an offer, but it wasn't competitive. So over a couple of cups of coffee, they worked out a deal, $3.1 or $2 million over 5 years.
That's insane.
the best pitcher in baseball. $3.1 million over 5 years.
What year is this?
1976 or 77.
And 50 years later, we're dealing in like futures.
a pitcher like Jim Hunter would start at $20 million a year.
Yeah.
That's the start.
Well, and I wonder if you agree with this, either of you. I've heard this about football versus baseball, because the way they get paid is very different. The phrase I've heard is that football, you get paid for what they expect you that you're going to do, and in baseball you get paid for what you've already done.
Right.
You've earned the right to this big contract.
That is
You've
way
had
to describe it.
Is that?
And a baseball contract is guaranteed. Football contract isn't.
I gotcha.
And neither is a basketball contract.
No, that's true.
So if you get hurt, career-ending injury,
of course,
you're going to get paid.
Absolutely.
As a baseball player,
or you get in trouble off the field.
Now
or whatever.
the teams have insurance. They have insurance for that. But it's a guaranteed contract.
Interesting.
So Hunter occupies an important place in baseball history because he showed players what they were worth. The next year, 2 players sued Major League Baseball over the reserve clause, and that was the clause in the contract that bound them to a team. The same arbiter ruled, it's illegal. And then free agency started.
Wow.
But Hunter was the first one, and so he was a nice guy, and he died of ALS. Excuse me.
He was in his early 50s, right?
He was. He said he had gone hunting, deer hunting, and he couldn't. It was a cold morning in November, and his right arm was stiff, and he thought it was just a cold, and got worse, and Yeah, he was diagnosed with ALS and died less than a year later.
Wow.
Yeah, he was he was just a good old country boy. Yeah, and that's how he's remembered.
And we'll go from the highest of highs to maybe not the lowest of lows, but the more minor. There's Catfish Hunter, who is one of the most famous baseball players of his time, and now is remembered, like you said, for the free agency. But you said you've enjoyed writing about guys who nobody's ever heard of.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Gus Brittain, is that how you say his name?
Gus Brittain. Yeah,
Brittain.
Gus Brittain was from Wilmington, and by all accounts, Gus was one mean SOB. The quote I love is a guy who played with him. And this, we're talking back in the 30s when train travel was common. Was traveling on a train that hit a car at a crossing, and they later described it and said it sounded like we're dragging Gus Brittain under the train. I mean, that's the kind of guy Gus was. He had a very long career in the minor leagues. That you can trace by following the suspensions and fines and the brawls.
The transaction page.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and the brawls. And, well, it turned out that Charlie Dressen, who was managing the Reds, and this was 1937, 38, he was managing the Reds, and he thought his batters were being taken advantage of by pitchers. They were getting hit too much, and Dressen was a sort of a cantankerous guy himself. And he said, well, he needed an enforcer. And Gus was playing for the Durham Bulls, was being fined regularly. The Bulls would love to get rid of him. But there were not a lot of teams wanted to take on Gus. Because, he was a capable catcher.
Sure.
But he
comes with some...
he came with a lot of baggage. That just, his abilities just were not enough to carry it.
Sure,
so,
if you had the right situation.
Yeah, right.
Someone who could handle him, maybe.
So Dressen said, he's just the guy I need. So the Bulls are glad to unload him. So Gus makes it to the major leagues.
Wow.
So here he is playing for the Reds. He appeared in a couple of games. He was their third-string catcher, and Charlie Dressen called him his fighting bullpen catcher. So Gus appeared in 2 or 3 games and got into one fight. But it happened to be with Paul Derringer, who was the Reds' pitching ace, and himself a very mean character.
Okay.
In fact, swung at the nurse. The great story is he went under for an appendectomy or something, and when he woke up, first thing he did was took a swing at the nurse. So Gus tangles with another cantankerous SOB, and they're rowing, and Derringer picked up a catcher's mask and smashed Gus in the face with it, and didn't faze Gus. And so here they went round and round and round. Teams had to break them up. And Dressen said, "That was it. You're going to beat up my star, my ace." So that was it. You're out of here. So he ends up back in Wilmington, where he's player manager of the Wilmington team. And there was a play at second base, close call at second base, that went against Gus, and he went running out there, kicked some dirt, and cussed, and everybody said that was that was a sort of minor outburst from Gus. Well, the next inning, he's behind the plate catching, and Guy Lingo Mungo, who is the player manager of, I think, a team from Clinton, who was a famous pitcher for the Brooklyn Dodgers during the time when the Dodgers were terrible, and Mingo was their only good pitcher, and he was a crowd favorite in Brooklyn. And so anyway, Lingo gets up there to the plate to bat, and some words are exchanged, and pretty soon there's a fight.
Gosh.
Well, there's a brawl. I mean, they come out of the stands. Mingo and the Mungo and the second baseman who had first caused all this were sent to the hospital. Well, Gus was charged, and he was thrown out of baseball. He was put on the ineligible list. It lasted for a couple of years. Then it was finally lifted, but by then he was too old and nobody wanted him. So he opened up club in Wrightsville Beach, Shooney's place. His name was Schuster. His middle name was Schuster, and they called him Shooney. So Shooney's place in Wilmington, just a bar, in Wrightsville Beach.
That's cool, though.
It's cool,
Yeah.
and it was there for quite a while.
Wow.
But so Gus, it's guys like Gus, and Dave Barbie, who appeared in one game, but was a monster. He was a minor league home run legend. Particularly out in the Pacific Coast League, and movie stars would go out when he played for, I think, the team in Seattle. So when Seattle would play L.A., all these movie stars would come out to see Barbie hit these monstrous home runs. Yeah, so it's things like that. Yeah, it's really, yeah.
And where was he from? Do you remember?
Dave Barbie. He's from the middle part of the state somewhere. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, they come from, and the other thing about this book, which I think I knew, but I just really didn't think about it, was that when you put these profiles together, it paints a picture of a North Carolina that is gone.
Yeah.
It was rural, farms and textile factories. A lot of these players came through the industrial leagues that centered around textile mills.
The textile mills had teams.
They had teams, very, very competitive teams.
Okay. And this is right below minor league level, would you say?
Yeah,
or on par with minor league level?
Maybe on par with low minor leagues.
Okay, sure.
But these were very competitive. They were fans. The parks were full, and they provided a training ground for a lot of players. So they came from these industrial leagues. But that's all gone now. And, even the minor leagues, we at one time had 40, 50 minor league teams in North Carolina.
Oh, wow.
Now I think there are 7 or 8.
Yeah.
And at the time it went from Class D. I mean, they rated them, as they do now.
Right.
There was not a AAA. There wasn't a Class 3A. The highest was 2A. So you'd go from 2A, A, all the way down to D. And teams like Wilson, the Wilson Bugs, and Clinton, all the old Carolina.
These really rural areas.
Yeah, very rural.
Yeah.
Beaufort. New Bern had a team.
Okay.
The New Bern Bears in the old Coastal Carolina League. That's all gone. So I think once you
Shoot, we can't even keep a team in Kinston anymore.
No, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And so it really does paint a picture of a North Carolina of the mid 20th century, that's so it was really it was a good way to spend the pandemic years.
Some nostalgia, wasn't it? Yeah. Obviously, we know, here at the Carteret County News-Times and baseball fans in Carteret County know a lot about Lonnie Chisenhall, being he's so recent. But tell us maybe about a couple of brothers back in the day we might not know as much about, the Wade brothers.
The Wade brothers, Ben Wade and his brother Jacob, they call Jake, Whistling Jake. They came from a very large family that grew up on Fisher Street. Okay. It was 11 kids in the family.
Wow.
Jacob was named after his daddy. He was a commercial fisherman. His brother, Winstead, some people called him Winnie, but most people in town knew him as Croker. He played in the minor leagues for a number of years. But Ben and Jake were both pitchers in the major leagues.
Right.
Ben, they were both wild, and that was the primary reason why their careers didn't amount to more than they did. But Ben, as it turned out, his real talent was discovering talent.
Right.
He became a scout and then the scouting director for the Dodgers. And really was the head of scouting at a time when that produced the backbone of a decade of Dodger dominance. Guys like Mike Piazza and Sosha and Steve Sachs and Oral Hershiser.
Fernando probably.
Fernando Valenzuela. Yeah. They were all signed by the Dodgers at a time when Ben was directing the scouting program. So he did not amount to much on the pitching diamond, but it turned out that his real talent was being able to look at some 18, 19-year-old kid and projecting what that kid might turn into in 5 or 6 years. Jake, on the other hand, a wild pitcher. As I said, they called him Whistling Jake, and he just didn't whistle just to, like we all do at the time. Jake took this stuff seriously. He'd whistle arias and show tunes and operas, and he practiced in front of a mirror. His first roommate thought he was nuts.
Whistled a little too much.
Yeah, whistling a little bit too much. This guy. So he acquired the nickname Whistling Jake. Uh-huh. And as I said, he was not a very good pitcher. He walked almost as many as he struck out, and he'd walk 6 or 7 batters a game. And then but baseball is baseball, and so there was the last day of this 1937 season. Jake is pitching for the Cleveland Indians. The last game at home at Municipal Stadium. I'm sorry. Jake was pitching for Detroit Tigers, and it was at Briggs Stadium in Detroit. The visiting team was Cleveland, and Johnny Allen was the starting pitcher for the visiting team. Allen was grew up in an orphanage in Thomasville. Another just. It's funny that back then they used all kinds of euphemisms for guys who just, I don't know, can you cuss on your podcast?
Certain words, you go for it.
Well, there's an old baseball term called red ass.
Okay.
And we all know what a red ass is.
Sure.
Fiery, huh?
Fiery to the point of losing control.
Okay.
Johnny Allen was that kind of guy.
I gotcha.
And but he was one heck of a pitcher. So he goes into it's the end, the very last game of the 1937 season in Detroit. Allen's got a 14-game winning streak. One more game ties the record held by Walter Johnson and Lefty Grove. All right, so he's going to go into the books with the immortals. Wow. Standing in his way is Jake Wade, the whistling wild man. I assume Allen thought this is in the bag. Move over, big train. I'm sitting down next to you. Well, Allen walks the first. Whistling Jake walks the first guy. He faces man, and then gets out of the inning. Well, it turns out he pitches the game of his life. He shuts out Cleveland. Johnny Allen allowed 1 run, an unearned run, loses 1-0 to the wildest pitcher in the American League. So there you go. I mean,
whistling SOB.
And any time in baseball, it's one thing.
That's the beauty of the game.
That's the beauty of the game. You got to play the game, and all odds were that that Johnny Allen would win his 15th game and go into the record books. But it turned out Jake Wade. I'd like to report that was a turning point for Jake, but it wasn't. But he came back to Morehead City, got a job as trained as an electrician, got a license as an electrician, and finished a career at the Air Base in Havelock. And moved to Wildwood. Oh yeah, and that's where he died. Wow. But and those are the 3 Carteret County. Right. The only 3 from Carteret County.
We'll wrap up here in a bit. I'll do a little bit of housekeeping before we do. So Ben Wade, his brother, he was the director of scouting, and he's contributed to finding players who led to 8 National League championships.
Yeah, that's right.
4 World Series.
Yep.
And those players earned 7 Rookie of the Year.
Yep.
So
Absolutely.
being away from Morehead City knew how to locate some talent.
Yeah, and that was and that's it's hard in baseball is different from basketball or football. A college kid, a kid from a college basketball player goes right into the major leagues. A baseball player, you're taking a kid who's 20, and now, pitchers don't reach their prime 26, 27. So you're trying to figure out what this kid's going to be in 4 or 5 years. And that's a particular talent.
No doubt.
And apparently Ben had it. So that's right.
Yeah.
He was a heck of a scouting. If we had an he would be the scout of our all North Carolina team. Yeah, he would be the scout of our all North Carolina team.
Hired as a scout in '62, retired as the director of scouting in 1990.
Wow.
Yeah, a Morehead City guy. Boy, living in Los Angeles, it was
Yeah.
a lot different than growing up in Morehead City, I would imagine.
Yep, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You mentioned the scout that had found catfish, Clyde Klutz. Is
Clyde
that the name?
Klutz. That's
Okay.
exactly right.
Yeah, and he was from Rockwell,
Okay, that's
North
in
Carolina.
yeah.
He owned a farm in nearby Salisbury.
Yeah, and the thing with catfish, I don't want to call him catfish. Jimmy Hunter, when he was in high school, he got senior year, or maybe it was before his senior year, the winter before his senior year. He went on a hunting trip with his brother. His brother's shotgun discharged and injured Jim's foot.
Oh my gosh.
Oh yeah. So they removed pellets, and everyone thought that was it. But Clyde told Finley, "No, this kid's got heart. Let's wait this out."
You can fight through it.
And he did, and he signed him, and and it was during that time that this bond developed, because Klutz would go to the, and he was a farmer himself, so he would go to the Hunter home site and home place, talk with the daddy out in the field, and Mama would invite him in for a piece of pie and a cup of coffee,
Yeah.
and this bond develops. So when it came time to cash in on that, the Hunter turned to Clyde and said, what do we got to do here? And so, but that's right, Clyde Klutz. Thanks for jogging my memory.
And the name you said you walking into Yankee Stadium, was the PA
Bob Shepard.
There you go.
Bob Shepard.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was legendary.
Yeah.
He had
did it forever, right?
He did it forever. He had
Yeah.
a very particular enunciation. It was like the voice of God.
Sure.
Yeah, it was. It really, because it boomed through the, this back in, we're just speakers,
Yeah.
So they echoed in this cavernous, Mickey Mantle, Mantle.
There was no Yes Network. It was just the guy in the booth. Right?
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So your initial names as a baseball fan is Mantle and DiMaggio and
I came later, and I took a lot of. There's a whole thing about. I got a whole thing about DiMaggio. I came from an Italian family. I'm the first American. I'm in the first generation in my family.
Oh wow!
So everybody,
y'all from Brooklyn, right?
Right. Yeah. Parents, grandparents, all came from Italy. And they came here. Right around World War I and later. Who, they didn't know anything about America. They knew certainly nothing about baseball. But this local team, this Yankee team, had guys like Crosetti, Berra, DiMaggio, all these names, Lazzari, all these names ending in vowels. And so, there was this affinity.
As we say in today's nomenclature, that was representation.
That's right. There was this affinity that developed with the Yankees and Italians.
Sure.
And my grandfather was a great Yankee fan. Now, my father, because he came later, he became, and my grandfather already living in Brooklyn, so he became a Dodger fan. But my grandfather was a great Yankee fan. He used to tease me, because I had Mantle was and he used to call him a citrul, which is Italian for like cucumber, it's somebody a dumb. It's citrul. You should have seen the great DiMaggio, and it was always the great
Oh,
DiMaggio.
that was his name.
It wasn't just, that's right, it wasn't just DiMaggio.
No, it's it makes me think of the Atlanta Braves, and we wouldn't call Chipper Jones, we call him Mr. Jones instead of Chipper or something like that.
The
There's a
great,
respect, yeah.
the great DiMaggio.
That's right.
Yeah, so he'd make fun of me, you know, he'd trying to get under his grandson's skin. You know?
The no knows what's going on.
Yeah. No, you heeding, young man, oh boy, man.
Couldn't hold a can.
Couldn't tie his shoes. Yeah.
But you came up at this time where these hallowed names in New York, the Yankees, and now baseball has changed so much over the years. Some not all for the good.
It's very hard for me.
I was going to say, are you still have that passion for the game that you had?
I
as a
do, but it's not the same. I don't have. I'm not a fan anymore.
Really?
I've discovered rather late in life that it's kind of foolish to invest your emotions and time. It
really is, though, isn't it?
over people who don't know your name and don't care about you one bit.
It's a capitalistic venture.
No doubt.
And you know,
the marketing, the merchandise.
The whole thing is.
And what if your team, these poor kids out here, saw an interview with a kid who's a Jets fan, and he was like 12 years old, and he's crying, and he's like, I hate this team. And that this guy is going to be invested in this for decades.
I think at 12 years old, that's fine. I really do. I do.
Sure.
And probably,
teenage,
and even 20, 30.
Sure.
Yeah.
But at some point, I've certainly reached that point.
Let me ask you this. When you're watching the Yankees then, and you're watching the game change a little bit, just to pick one name, the name out of the hat, and say, could you ever have imagined someone like a Shohei Ohtani coming here and putting up the numbers that he's put up?
Yeah, we had Babe Ruth.
No doubt.
Ruth didn't play the outfield and pitch at the same time.
Sure.
But people forget that Ruth was the best left-handed pitcher in the American League.
Yeah.
When they switched him to the outfield, and he was hitting more home runs than entire teams together.
No doubt.
So Ohtani, the only difference in Ohtani's not the pitcher that Ruth was, and I don't think he's the hitter Ruth was, because not only Ruth hit home runs, what was his lifetime average, but he hit 340.
No doubt.
Ruth changed the game. I hear a lot of young kids who don't seem to understand that, but it's been done before. But it's
has the money soured it a little bit for you?
The money has soured it.
A lot of money.
It's a lot of money, and once you add that kind of money, and things like pitch clocks, and you can only throw to first base 3 times.
A player on second base.
This is all to me just stupid, and it really does mar the game. You'll never again have a 21-inning game.
Right.
I used to know. I think at one time I had friends who were Mets fans, and the Mets played. Forget who it. Whoa! It was Perry. Perry was pitching that game. Who was Perry pitching for? San Francisco, the Giants. The game went 24 innings.
Wow.
And it used to be the longest game. I don't know if it still is, but it went 24 innings. Didn't end until 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
That'll never happen again. And
now the pitchers don't get past the 5th inning.
A guy, 100 pitches. Though I think one thing I learned doing this research is that every pitcher gets hurt. Every pitcher.
It's not a natural throwing motion, is it?
It's not a natural throwing motion.
Yeah.
You do it long enough, hard enough.
Gonna cause some damage.
Something's
that elbow.
Used to be the shoulder.
Yeah.
But now they develop, because the shoulder's a muscle.
Right.
So you can develop exercises to strengthen that muscle.
The elbow's a joint.
That's just tendons,
right.
and you can't strengthen that. So it moved down the arm to the next crucial point, which was the elbow. And what I learned is, the Nolan Ryans, the Gaylord Perrys are rare indeed.
Unicorns.
They're just very rare.
Yeah.
And they're freaks of nature.
Right.
And if they're any good at all, they're in the Hall of Fame.
No doubt.
Because they can pitch 20 years.
Right. Longevity. We're seeing that now in other sports.
Right.
Between,
most pitchers can't do that.
Food science or nutritional science and physical therapy and the
book is littered with the bones of really players who were going to be great, had the earmarks of
Tommy John
greatness.
surgeries.
Well, this is
Exactly.
before Tommy
Yeah.
John. If you had that kind of injury,
back in the
you were
day.
done. You were done.
Yeah.
You continue to pitch.
Yeah.
I mean, because you knew it was going to be career-ending. So
Wow.
and they put you out in the bullpen. That's
Sure.
what old sore arm pitchers were. And there are several players in the book, Abernathy, who really started that change. And there's a chapter in the book about trendsetters, guys who did things that started something different
Of
in baseball.
course.
And it was guys like Abernathy and Hoyt Wilhelm from Mecklenburg County, who are star relievers, and they started that transition from the bullpen being just this place for cast-offs
To it being a real tool.
to
yeah.
being a real tool
Yeah,
in baseball.
yeah.
Yeah.
You could have a lot of pieces in that arsenal.
But you still love it enough to write a book about it.
I do, and
true.
I still watch it. I've watched
Yeah.
the World Series, and I still watch it. And I find now that the announcers are really. I'm not going to get into it.
No, I know what you mean, though.
Don't get you
But
started.
I usually turn them off because
Just watch it on mute. Yeah.
there's nothing they can tell me that I really don't already.
They're not
know.
adding much to the game for
No,
you.
they're not. They're not adding much. So I just watch it, and I'm good for 3 or 4 innings. I get tired and go to bed.
Get your taste of it, and
Go to
there
bed.
we go. That's fair.
Awesome. Frank Tursi, Tar Heel Boys of Summer, North Carolina's major league ball players. Get it wherever you buy your books.
And you can pre-order now if you go to the McFarland website, or you can go to my Substack page. And because what I've done on Substack is, as I said, only 38 profiles in the book. I've got well over 100 written.
Oh wow.
So I'm starting to dribble them out on Substack, and you'll find players who don't appear in the book on Substack, and there'll be information there on how you can pre-order the book.
And Frank isn't close to retirement. He's still pumping out reporter type stories on his Substack, the White Oak Journal. If you want to read about North Carolina, especially the environment, you're still very active writing about that.
I am. I just came back from Cape Lookout, and I spent a couple of hours on a windy day when it was too windy on the beach, back in the what they call the historic village, the old Barden House and the Coca-Cola House. I went around, took them pictures, and I'm going to do something on Substack about those buildings. And it's unfortunate that Park Service doesn't have the money, and so it's unfortunate that the Barden House is. Dr. Barden and Newbern would be sorely disappointed, but so I'm going to do something on the village. So
I would encourage people to check out the White Oak Journal. A lot of good stuff there by Frank. Frank, thank you so much. For
Thank
your
you
time
for having
today.
me,
We really
guys. I appreciate it. Enjoyed it.